When you think of rain, you probably just think of, well, water. But what if I told you that in one of the world's biggest cities, it's also raining plastic? Yeah, you heard that right. A brand new scientific study has confirmed that the rainwater in Jakarta is full of microplastics. And today, we're going to break down exactly what that means.
Just let that sink in for a second. It's not just water. For a long time, we've been worried about plastic in our oceans, in our soil. But this discovery in Jakarta, it confirms the problem has spread to a place most of us never really expected, the sky itself. So let's get into how scientists even figured this out. All right, so what exactly did the scientists from Indonesia's National Research and Innovation Agency, or BRIN for short, find in the rain? Let's unpack their findings because honestly, the results were way more alarming than I think anyone was ready for.
Check this out. The study found that, on average, 15 microplastic particles are falling on every single square meter of Jakarta, every single day. Just try to picture that, a constant, totally invisible shower of plastic just blanketing the entire city.
Now, I know what you're thinking. 15 particles. That doesn't sound like a whole lot, does it? But let's put it into perspective. If you have a pretty typical 100 square meter rooftop, that adds up to 1,500 tiny pieces of plastic raining down on it each and every day.
So where is all this plastic even coming from? Well, about 40% of it is synthetic fibers. We're literally talking about tiny threads shedding from the clothes we wear. Another 35% comes from tire polymers, little particles that grind off our car tires and get kicked up into the air. And the rest? Just fragments from old plastic waste. It's basically the fallout of our modern lives, cycling right back down on top of us.
Okay, so we know it's happening. We know where it's coming from. But the most important question is, what does this invisible invasion actually mean for our health and for the environment? Let's get into the risks. First off, let's make sure we're on the same page. Microplastics are exactly what they sound like. Incredibly small plastic particles, smaller than 5 millimeters. And their tiny size is what makes them so sneaky. It lets them easily slip into whole ecosystems and, maybe most worrying of all, into our own bodies. So how do they get inside of us? The ways are, well, they're unnervingly simple. First, we breathe them in. Inhalation. Second, we eat and drink them. Ingestion. And once they're in, they don't always just pass right through. They can actually start to build up, to accumulate in our vital organs. And this isn't just a theory, not at all. Health officials have started issuing some specific warnings based on new research. Studies are beginning to link microplastic exposure to some serious stuff: cardiovascular problems, disruptions in fetal development, and even a higher risk of premature birth. The potential consequences are very, very real. I know, this is a pretty daunting problem, but it's not going unanswered. So, how is Jakarta fighting back? Let's take a look at the policy responses that are being put into place. It looks like the response is happening on two different levels. At the national level, the Environment Ministry is planning a huge infrastructure project, a waste-to-energy plant, to try and cut down on the amount of plastic waste just sitting in landfills. Meanwhile, Jakarta's local government is focusing more on reinforcing laws that are designed to cut down on plastic use in the first place.
And here's what that local plan actually looks like on the ground. They're enforcing a regulation that bans single-use plastic bags in places like shopping centers and markets. They're also pushing eco-friendly alternatives and launching public awareness campaigns to get everyone involved. It's an approach that's really targeting our daily habits to try and create a much bigger change. Now, it would be really easy to look at all this and just think, wow, that's a problem for Jakarta. But that would be missing the much bigger, much more concerning picture here. So let's zoom out for a second and talk about why this is truly a global storm.
I mean, it brings up a pretty obvious question, right? Is this whole plastic rain thing unique to Jakarta? Is this just some kind of crazy anomaly?
The answer is a clear and resounding no. Not even close. Similar studies have found plastic rain all over the world, in the United States, across Europe, and China. This Jakarta study is one of the first of its kind in Southeast Asia, sure, but it's really just confirming a disturbing pattern that scientists are now seeing globally. And that really brings us to the ultimate takeaway here. For years, we've thought of plastic pollution as a problem for our oceans and our land. This research confirms something new and, frankly, deeply unsettling. The problem has reached the atmosphere. Plastic is now in the air we breathe, and it's a part of our planet's water cycle. And that leaves us with one final, pretty provocative question that this whole discovery forces us to ask. We now know for a fact that plastic is falling from the sky. So, if it's in our rain, where else are we going to find it?